Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world away from the numbers.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. This is episode 387, and I'm your host, Michael McCall. Thanks for joining us again in these troubled times, and hopefully over the next 2 hours we'll give you a little bit of entertainment just to take your mind off all the happenings that's going on in the outside world, because I think we all need that just now. As I mentioned last week, we plan to do these shows every week as normal because we all need some normality in our lives, and it's an escape for me, it's an escape for you hopefully as well. As regular listeners will know, we usually record these shows live from the CITR studios up at the University of British Columbia. But like most things just now, the studios are closed, so what I've decided to do is we're going to record the new episodes as normal on a Sunday, bring them out as normal as a podcast on the Monday, but because we want to kind of keep things as up to date as possible, by recording them on the Sunday, it's not enough time for us to get it into the CITR system, so they'll be aired on the radio the following Sunday. So as this podcast comes out on Monday, March 23rd, it will then be aired on CITR 101.9 FM on Sunday, March 29th. But we're not letting the lack of football stop us from having another packed show, and that's what we're going to bring you again tonight. A lot of good stuff coming up. We're going to be joined in part 2 by Atletico Ottawa's first ever signing, Ben Fisk. We've got part 2 of our weekly periodic football drama. Football Violence Awareness Month continues. We have a chat with Whitecaps centre-back Jasser Khmiri. And in the final part of the show, we're going to talk Football Manager with an aficionado of the game, Rituro. But we're going to kick things off in this part with a roundup of the latest news from the world of football and how COVID-19, the coronavirus, is affecting things. And as I talked about, I want this to kind of be an escape for everyone, so we're not wanting to talk too much about the virus itself. Did that last week. As far as I'm concerned, all anyone really needs to say about it in shows like this just now is, everyone, be sensible, look after each other, don't hoard food, don't panic buy, wash your hands, cover your nose when you sneeze, cover your mouth when you cough, and if you have to go outside, keep your distance, 2 metres apart. Don't be stupid. Don't congregate in crowds. Don't put anyone else at risk. You might be a young person that feels you're not going to get this, but think of the knock-on effect. If you get it, you take it to your family, you give it to workmates, you give it to elderly people. Everyone just needs to be sensible just now, and we're not seeing a lot of it around the world, sadly. I hope in the coming week that is going to change, because things are just changing so rapidly right now in the world of football, that who knows what we'll be talking about in a week's time. But that's all I really want to talk about the coronavirus itself in this show. The rest of tonight's show is going to be all about football. And in this first part, unfortunately we do have to look at the knock-on effect of the virus, the impact it has had on the world game. Leagues around the world, including here in North America, severely disrupted by this. Right now it is hard to see how we're going to actually get out of this. But to talk about some of these things and just what some of the latest leagues around the world have announced, delighted to welcome host of the AFTN Preview podcast, Joe Deasy, what's it been like for you, quarantined with a wife and a young baby?
Not bad. It turns out we get along quite well. Who would have thought?
That's a good thing, because I'm waiting till my wife has to work from home to see how that works for us. But so far, things are good.
Yeah. I'm working from home now full time. Did a little bit of that already before the quarantine, so kind of know the routine. But interesting times ahead.
What kind of football things have you been doing to occupy yourself?
So a ton of Football Manager is what I would prescribe anyone who's in this situation. And actually, the Zone's highlights on YouTube have seen me through a lot. They have those like old goals, like the best of whatever 2007, 2008 kind of 20-minute videos have been seeing me through the hard times. And I'm almost at the stage now where I'm going to look up, old World Cup games that I remember fondly. And even though I know the score, just watch them from start to finish. I think I might start with like Germany 5, England 1. I think that was 2010. And then maybe Ireland 1, Germany 1 in 2002. To work my way through that list, and we'll see how far I get.
Excellent. Yeah, I've got a load of like best of World Cup highlight videos on VHS. I still got a VHS player, so I'm going to dig those out. I actually on YouTube, the only old kind of game I've watched recently was Ireland-England, the abandoned game with all the football violence.
Oh yeah. Very much for off-the-pitch reasons, that would be an interesting one to watch.
It was fascinating. It ties in nicely with Football Violence Awareness Month, so that was my main reason for doing it.
Not the best part of the history between the two nations, I would say.
No, I remember watching it at the time, and it was like, yeah, crazy. But as I said, as we kicked off the show, we're keeping all the virus chat to a minimum, but we do want to talk about the football, and obviously the coronavirus has had a big impact on leagues around the world. It looks like pretty much everyone has stopped playing now, although there was a live Russian amateur non-league game on YouTube last night at midnight with English commentary.
Anything to scratch the itch.
Yeah, I was one of 33 people watching.
Okay. I expect more from the online community. Weren't the non-league still playing until quite recently too?
Yeah, they played last weekend, but they've now made the decision, because we're getting 5,000 folk at the game, so it's like they've now made the decision that's stopped.
Yeah. Well, a good substitute for that in Football Manager, go to the non-league, because it's tremendous down there.
We're going to be speaking to Rituro in part 4, so he's going to be talking a lot about that. So let's kind of start off our roundup of the leagues over in Europe then. UEFA have been busy. They've now postponed Euro 20 till 2021, but still going to be called Euro 20. But the last qualifiers for the Nation League, which Scotland are part of, Ireland's part of, or are they? Northern Ireland is Ireland?
Ireland are part of it too, I think.
So, I mean, they've been only postponed just now till June, but at least they're going to have time to get those games in. But clearly the right decision to push that back to next year.
Yeah, I think so. I was really looking forward to that tournament this summer, because I think it alternates nicely. You have a summer off, then a big tournament every year. So it looks like we're going to have 2 summers in a row without a big tournament. Even like the Confederations Cup and things like that will probably have to get pushed back or something.
Yeah.
So it'll be a domino effect of sorts. We're going to have to see how these confederations sort out their. I think you know what I think what could happen is, like, FIFA will set out some guidelines or something on how all your leagues are supposed to finish up, and people should follow it that way. Otherwise, it's just going to be a mishmash all over the place.
Well, that's the crazy thing, because I mean, in Europe, the leagues have all sort of stopped. You've got, in Scotland, the first league that I've heard of, which is non-league, the Highland League, they've just said, look, we know this isn't going to finish anytime soon. Their leaders, Brora Rangers, were ahead by 13 points with 6 games to go. So they've look, just call it. All the clubs agreed. They've won the league. In the rest of the Scottish League, obviously, Celtic want to be given the title because they're 13 points ahead. Rangers are like, no, we have to finish the season. Hearts would be relegated if things stood as they were, so they're threatening legal action. And it might actually force league reconstruction in Scotland, which is a great thing. In England, the Premier League is suspended until April 30th. But I was reading a thing on BBC this morning. The Southampton CEO said that the government's been in talk with football officials and they may get given the green light to come back and play before all the restrictions have been lifted, because the feeling is if they have football on the TV every day, that's going to cheer the mood of the nation up.
That makes sense politically. I don't think from a public health point of view it works quite so well. Like, we're hearing more and more now every day of players who have tested positive, and obviously because these are people who are in the top 1% of physical shape, they don't show many symptoms, right? But you have to think of, just as an example, Roy Hodgson is 72 or something like that.
Yeah.
Imagine if he got the virus from running into Kevin De Bruyne by accident or something like that. Like, it wouldn't be wise in my opinion, and the managers in particular, or the backroom staff, would be the people more vulnerable than the players. There's no safe way to address that until any kind of ban has been lifted, where the government feel like it's safe enough to proceed as we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to wonder about, we saw it in the European games, the fans congregating outside the stadium.
Yeah. And
it just takes one player then to have it, and it's like the whole thing's then disrupted again. And then how long do you do quarantine for? I mean, there's no easy answer. And I agree with you. I think this will end up being a FIFA directive. And whether they end up doing something like a points average, which is what Celtic's Neil Lennon suggested, I mean, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. The bugger of a thing in Scotland is they're talking of league reconstruction and moving 4 teams up from each division, which would mean East 5 lost the last game before they stopped play and they fell out of the top 4. And it's like we would lose promotion because of that. So that would be tough. But
yeah. No, and even Man United now are 5th place. If the City Champions League ban somehow gets overturned, United were looking really good before everything stopped, right? I think they were games unbeaten,
hitting their stride.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to feel sorry for people when there's literally nothing that anyone could have done in a footballing sense to mitigate this. It's very much about damage control. Being a United fan, I think the Premier League title should be vacant this year, and we just start over again. But that's just my opinion.
I think there's possibly a lot of folk that are going to feel that way. But I mean, it's interesting because you've got players' contracts as well that expire on June 30th.
Yeah. It kind of is a looming date that you kind of want everything to be sorted out by. I think it's more difficult for leagues that are finishing up, like the European leagues. And actually, speaking about outside of England, German league has a title race which it hasn't had in years, right? We don't really know what the conclusion of that is. Italy too, right? Juventus are under heavy pressure from Lazio and Inter to win the league, and the Barcelona Real Madrid thing is as competitive as it ever was. So we're kind of being denied of the final act of a play. But again, we can't blame anyone. It's way bigger than football. It's just a small complaint relative to what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways football could even come out of this in a better shape if they do delay the leagues and they still play them to a finish and then delay the start of the next one and get in a different schedule to tie in with the next World Cup, all those kind of things.
Yeah, Rooney was saying that, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a lot of sense in this. I would never have thought that.
He was the first person I heard suggest it. Maybe there were other people before that, but it makes a ton of sense, especially with the scheduling of the World Cup 2020. The thing for the European teams, though, is that they'll have 2 tournaments back-to-back.
Yeah.
Players won't get any break unless they reschedule the league somehow or expand the winter break or something. Concessions will have to be made, that much is clear.
Turning our attention now to this continent, and obviously it's hit hard in North America. MLS, the training moratorium is now until March 27th, but they're just going to keep extending that, obviously, for obvious reasons, because you've had a backroom staff member at NYCFC test positive now as well. So once it starts getting into the community, they're going to keep players just away from as far as possible, but players are expected to stay in their markets. So if they've got family across the country, they're not able to go home, which is tough. But at the same time, it does make sense. But I mean, we're going to be speaking to Ben Fisk in part 2, and he's now in Ottawa, but all his family's here in BC. So I mean, it's tough for players.
Yeah, and the US and Canada, I don't think you can travel to the country now unless you are a permanent resident or a citizen.
Yeah.
So I wonder if any players got, caught on the wrong side of things. Like if there was a Canadian team with an international player in the States at the wrong time, would the player be able to get back to Canada, right? So obviously those aren't things that the league would publicise or anything like that, but very likely that it could happen. A friend of mine was visiting Ireland and is now stuck there. He's over here working on a 2-year visa. And he can't come home. He's had to sort out what to do with his apartment and all that kind of thing. It's not good.
Yeah, I've got a good friend that's gone down to Australia. His mum had recently died, so he booked himself a trip of a lifetime, went down to Australia. Now he doesn't know if he's going to be stuck down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, MLS and USL, the suspension has been extended until May 10th. So there's definitely no games till May 10th. The USL training moratorium is until April 5th. Players are not allowed to use the training facilities except for any physical therapy purposes. And CPL, the start of the season there has been postponed. No time given, which for me is sensible. I just think the leagues, they shouldn't put dates on it. I just think they should say it's suspended indefinitely. Once we know more, we'll try and give you more.
Yeah, I don't know what the benefit of putting a date there, if you're just going to push it back, is.
Yeah.
No one can pretend that they know what's going to happen.
Well, unless you're a Fox News anchor where you say that there has to be an end date given to this.
Yes, that was ridiculous.
Oh.
There's been a lot of crap in the last few weeks, but that was right up there.
Oh yeah, that was right at the top. Now, the CPL Commissioner, David Clarnican, his statement was, "We will continue to work with all authorities in order to make a decision on when to begin our 2020 season. When it is declared safe by the relevant health and government agencies, including our governing body, Canada Soccer." And for me, that's the sensible way to do it. It's the only way to do it just now. And the problem is, because MLS are coming out and saying, we're not cancelling any games, it's going to be a full season, ticket money is still being taken from fans because they're still going to have a 34-game season. And there's a lot of folk who can't really afford the tickets just now because they're getting laid off or they're on reduced wages. So the sooner that they maybe come out and say, look, this isn't going to be really feasible, I think it's going to help everyone.
Yeah, I don't see how they can have a full season still. If, let's say it's June that we're back up and running, that's 4 months to play out your regular season of 32 games remaining. That doesn't seem good from a player safety or player injury point of view, does it? I think you have to reduce it somehow.
Yeah, and that's just what I kind of wanted to have a little look at now. And obviously, this is all speculation. And as I said, we're a football show, so we want to talk about football, and football shows are about speculation. But right now, if everything worked out somehow miraculously and the games returned mid-May, the Whitecaps would be back in action May 16th at home to Nashville. Now, if that happened, they would have lost 8 games that would needed to have been rescheduled, and that's very doable. If you went into the 1st of June, though, you're looking at 12 games need to get rescheduled. If you go into the 1st of July, it's 17 games. The 1st of August, 22 games. So it's then completely unmanageable.
You might have additional international breaks to resolve those qualification fixtures or something like that, or if the tournaments all get postponed, I guess those can be pushed back a little bit too, but it's part of the consideration. Like, national teams will not be happy if they don't see their players for too long, right? They want to continuously assess their players, so that's going to be something to wedge in there as well.
And, I mean, looking at how MLS could look, I mean, based on very little than a hunch, if we're back by the summer, I'll be amazed. So, I mean, you could be looking beyond that. MLS has a bit of scope in that they could extend the season into November, even into December. I mean, I had a look. You could possibly extend it up to Saturday, December 19th, play the MLS Cup then. But I looked at the kind of Western teams and I looked at some temperatures. Now, in the West, you've got 3 to 4 teams that would struggle with December games. In Minnesota, you've got a high of -3 and a low of -11 and lots of snow. Colorado, snow. RSL, snow, lows in the minuses. Even Kansas City has lows into the minuses as well. In the East, it's then an absolute complete nightmare. I mean, apart from Miami and Orlando, it would be hard to see how far these games could go. And then in the CPL, impossible.
I think what you'd have to do, if that was the case, is you would have to fix the final venue, regardless of who you think is in the final. So, a indoor stadium or a warm climate stadium. Atlanta kind of sticks out as a good option because of the facilities. You'd want it to be somewhere kind of vibrant that even if the home team didn't make it, you could still potentially generate some kind of an atmosphere around it.
Yeah. I mean, I initially had thought BC Place because it was under a roof, so it would go on no matter what. But then you've got possibly 2 American teams trying to get into the border, and you still don't know what the border is going to be like in international travel, even by that point.
Yeah. That could be the All-Star game we were promised.
Yeah. Finally, we get it.
Yeah.
By default.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, as you talked about, it's going to be in a lot more games for the players if they do try to cram a season in. Double match weeks. I mean, I think the sensible thing is to let clubs expand the roster. If they've got a USL team, let them call the guys up. We can call guys up from our residency or development squad. It would give you extra numbers and it would be less strain on the bodies.
Yeah. Personally, I know the MLS has come out with that statement that they don't want to reschedule any games, but I think if they were to entertain this idea for a few minutes, there's a pretty sensible solution in just playing teams in your own conference.
Yeah.
I know you lose the big games that you would want to see, like Inter Miami, LAFC or whatever, but they do intentionally schedule more in conference games towards the end of the season to make the playoff run a bit more interesting. You can just take that to the extreme, and any games that were missed during the hiatus, you just reschedule them in place of out-of-conference games and things like that, because then you could still have your full playoff format in a relatively fair way to do it, right? It's just those games that are out of conference that you would bump. And
Yeah.
schedule a few of them here and there, just to, the ones that you really want to keep. MLS would have no problem doing that. They don't need to pretend that they care about the on-field product. They just want to generate the income for those nationally televised matches.
Yeah, and again, I ran the numbers, and I mean, the talk coming out of the UK today was they might have folk in lockdown that's vulnerable for like 3 months. So I mean, that would take you up to like July. So I mean, if it returned in July, you could do a lot, including a near full season. Now, if it's conference versus conference, you're talking 24 games and then however many playoffs you want to go with after that.
Yeah.
So you've got, for me, up until September to get that done. Because if you didn't start the season until September 1st, that would still give you, and this is still playing it into December 19th, which is obviously not ideal, but that gives you 32 possible Wednesday, Saturday matches.
Yeah.
After that, it's like impossible to do even interconference things, so you might have to have a knockout cup or something. But I mean, July or August, and you think you could have a realistic, decent season. But I mean, that just seems so far away right now.
Yeah, and everything's moving so quickly. It's hard to, in 2 weeks from now, this statement could feel ridiculous because everything has gotten so serious. Yeah, things are changing, and this is one of them. Like the way that we foresee the rest of the season, it's going to change just as rapidly as all the other factors in people's everyday lives, I think.
Yeah, definitely a lot to change, but we'll hopefully still continue to bring you coverage here on AFTN for as much as we can and try and get you some entertainment. So
That's the only constant in the world, I think.
yeah, I mean, we have to.
Yeah.
I've got so many top 10 lists and stupid things I can come up with. It's fine.
Good. I have a few ideas too. I'll drip feed them throughout the coming months.
Excellent. So just before you go, Joe, let everyone know where they can find you online.
You can find me at Joe Deasy Van on Twitter, and also in my home office most of the time if you want to send a homing pigeon.
And when's the next preview podcast?
Let's pencil it in for mid-July.
Excellent. We'll hold you to that. You're going to have to do one no matter what.
Yeah, I'll preview. Actually, there's a great YouTube channel where they race marbles. I'll do some preview shows for that one. Actually has a huge following. It's great to watch.
I saw someone share that, but I hadn't watched it. I'll check that out.
It's great. The guy has it set up very professionally. It's fantastic.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Joe, and just keep safe, keep your family safe, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Joe for joining us there. And like I said, I know it's a lot of speculation right now on our part, and so much can change so quickly, but it's worth putting that out there. Football debate is always a great thing to take your mind off things. But that is it for this part. We're going to be talking some CPL chat in part 2 with Ben 10 himself, Atletico Ottawa's Ben Fisk. We'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Marcel de Jong, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Are you from the north or US daughters at the Isle of Skye? Are you from the Isle of Barra, Egmont, from Orkana? Are you from the Rocky Waters or the Hebrides? Oh, this is my island, oh, this is my island. From the port on Nice right through the mission till the end of time. Oh, this is my island, oh, this is my island. We feed the sheep and cut the beans until the day we die.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show. That was our Artist of the Month for March, Pete and Diesel, from Stornoway in the Western Isles in Scotland, and that song was called Island, from their latest album, Light My Buyer. It's also the latest single to be taken from the album, so you can check out a really good video on Pete and Diesel's YouTube channel. Now we're going to call this episode of the podcast Celtic Connections. Obviously I'm from Scotland. Pete and Diesel, they're from Scotland. Joe Deasy, who was in part 1, from Ireland. And our next guest spent some time playing in Ireland. He also spent last season playing on an island, playing with Pacific FC before joining new CPL side Atletico Ottawa as their first signed player. And I'm delighted to welcome back on the show our good friend, Ben 10 himself. It's Ben Fisk. Stuck in his house in Ottawa just now, and first thing to really ask you, Ben, is how are you feeling?
I think feeling like the rest of the world right now. I think we're all in the same boat, you know, when it comes to times like this. I think everyone's human, so whether you're a footballer, a banker, teacher, whatever it is, we're all just, worried about the health and safety of our loved ones, and hopefully things can go back to normal pretty soon.
And like as a footballer as well, I mean, football by nature, especially as a footballer, it's a community thing. You're used to playing with teammates. You're used to having your teammates around you constantly. You're not really used to being on your own. Has it been a little bit weird this past week?
The hardest thing for me is just being away from family and loved ones. I think, like I said, in times like this, that's kind of, it all boils down to just the health and safety of the people you care about. So it's hard to be that isolated from my family in Vancouver and Victoria, but, you know, and then obviously professionally, I'd love to be kicking a ball around right now, but that's definitely a second afterthought at the moment.
And for anyone that doesn't know, Ben and the rest of the Atletico Ottawa team were over in pre-season training in Spain. They had to hurriedly come home, and they got home last Monday, obviously then having to go in 14 days quarantine. I mean, looking at being over there in Spain when all this was happening, what was the mood of the players? It must have been quite scary.
It was, yeah. It was quite unnerving watching things unfold. I remember the day that I arrived in Spain, you know, obviously coronavirus was in the news, and we knew that Italy had been hit very badly, and And Spain was certainly one of the countries that seemed to be trending in that sort of direction. But within a couple of days of us arriving, that's when things really started to hit the fan. So it definitely boiled down to we knew we were going to have to come home, but we were just hoping we'd be able to get home in time before any borders were shut or restrictions were put on travel. So luckily we were able to do so.
Yeah, but you're home safe now, so that's the main thing. And I said in the first part of our show, we're not really wanting to talk too much about the coronavirus because it's everywhere just now and it's overwhelming. So I want to get into some football chat with you.
That sounds great.
Obviously, the CPL season has been delayed. No one really knows when it's going to get back up and running. And I know football takes kind of second place behind all this other things just now, but we are a football show. I mean, talking about your move to Ottawa, first thing, it's like it was murmured for a while that you might be on the move from Pacific. You're being touted as probably one of the top free agents in the CPL. Was it a time of uncertainty for you, or like when did you kind of know that you'd probably be moving on from Pacific?
It was a bit of a drawn-out decision. Obviously, coming to the end of the season, being out of contract, I felt I'd had a good season given the circumstances, and I definitely wanted to take a step back and evaluate all the options and make the best decision for myself. Saying that, the plan was always to stay at Pacific. We've been in talks with owners consistently over the off-season, and that was always the plan until Ottawa was announced. And then, of course, I kind of took a bit of an interest as they were in contact with me pretty much as soon as they were announced. And, they ultimately just sold me on the opportunity that being a part of the Atletico Madrid family could bring. And, just another new project that I found really exciting. And in the nation's capital, in our nation's league, I thought was a really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an exciting time for the club there. It's just a shame so much of it's kind of been derailed kind of initially. But, I mean, you're a BC boy. You've obviously played overseas a lot. You've been in Ireland and Spain, and you've travelled a lot in your career. I mean, you touched on it there, but, I mean, how tough was it to leave Pacific and to leave BC, really? Very, very difficult.
My fiance's actually stayed in Victoria. She's got a good steady job there. So with the timing of everything, it didn't make sense for her to pack up shop and come with me for the 9-month season. So there was very difficult kind of smaller decisions to be made in and around just where I was going to be playing. But ultimately, it kind of came down to I felt like the longer I stayed at Pacific or in BCA, the harder it would have been to leave in the future if a better opportunity came about. So it was one of those ones where I was just thinking about where I'm at in my career, and I definitely feel like I still have a lot to give to the game, and that I haven't reached my potential as a player. So I wanted to make the decision that gave me the best possibility to fulfill my whole potential and see where it could take me.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying that. I forget that you're still a young player because I've watched you play for so many years, going back to the residency here. And yeah, you've still got a lot of the career to go. And I mean, you've played in Spain before. And obviously with Atletico Madrid having now the ownership of this team, was that a selling point for you as well, knowing that you could have eyes on you from overseas again?
For sure, yeah. I think... I wanted to make the decision that wouldn't necessarily just open one door, but could possibly open, the highest number of doors if I take care of business on the field. So obviously, with the network that Atletico Madrid has, owning teams in multiple countries, and obviously being, I think most people would agree they've turned themselves into a top 10 club in the world at this point in time. So just having that backing and that kind of a network behind your employer, I think, is a pretty exciting prospect for most players.
And to be the very first signing of a football club as well, I mean, that must be something special. For sure, yeah.
Funny enough, I had no idea that I was going to be the first inaugural signing or anything like that. So me signing was based on what I thought that could do for my career, and obviously, coming into a setup that I thought was going to be very professional and very well run. It was something that excited me far beyond, just my personal goals. And then obviously when I found out, it was actually just the day before I was announced that I found out I'd be announced as the inaugural signing, and that was just the icing on the cake. That was obviously something I was really proud of, and it was a really fun day when it all came out, and all those eyes on you was I haven't experienced anything like that before.
And the big question that Zach wanted me to ask you was, are you going to be wearing the number 10 shirt?
Numbers haven't been announced yet, so we'll see. I do love my little trademark that you guys gave me back in the residency days. I think Ben 10 rolls off the tongue pretty nicely.
Yeah.
So, it won't be announced yet, but hoping so, yeah.
And I mean, the thing with the team as well is not all the signings have even been announced. I was checking the website and they're hoping to announce some more of the signings this week. Obviously, you know who a lot of them are, but I know you can't say. But from the spell that you had pre-season, I mean, did you even get much time on the pitch as a group?
We had our first few days there. We did get to train. I think I can't remember exactly. I think 4 or 5 training sessions we got to have.
Okay.
But until things were shut down, what I think we all took from it is even once we couldn't train anymore, we had a lot of time just united as a team. We were basically quarantined in our hotel, and with no one to rely on but each other. And for a team that kind of was starting behind the 8 ball in terms of the rest of the league began training, I think 2 weeks before we did. That kind of time in isolation, just as a group, even just as young men, not being able to train, but coming together and unifying ourselves as a group, I think will pay dividends later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unique situation, and folk always know that the pre-season trips are a great time for team bonding and everything like that, and this will certainly have helped. But, I mean, something else, and I know it's not the main thing to think about in a time like this, but it also kind of applies to the Whitecaps and MLS. This break, Whitecaps-wise, it's going to help the Whitecaps because they're going to get injured players and unfit players back up to speed and be able to compete. Now for Ottawa, because as you said, you kind of started a couple of weeks behind everyone else, this is going to kind of, when the season does get underway, you have to feel it's going to put them more on an even footing with everyone else. For
sure, yeah. I think, as you said, that's not the first thing on anyone's mind right now. All that matters, first and foremost, is the health and safety of everybody, but taking it back to a sporting perspective, for sure, I think we'll be slightly less affected than the other teams, just in terms of the work that they were able to get in, especially fitness-wise, before we even got started. Obviously, it was going to give them a bit of a leg up in the season, so I think this definitely brings everyone back to the same kind of starting block, and obviously it's not like we're just staying at home doing nothing. We have our home workouts and everything to try and keep as fit as we can. There's only so much you can do in your living room, but it's just one of those ones where you take the cards you're dealt, and then once we're able to get back training as normal, hopefully we'll all taking good enough care of ourselves that we're ready to go.
And are you on your own just now, or are you isolated with any of the other players?
I've got an apartment with 2 teammates. So.
Okay, that's good. At least you've got some company and someone to talk to.
Yeah. At least we've got that, and also just to hold each other accountable. It's easy to get pretty sick of doing push-ups in your living room, but if you got a couple of guys making sure you do it, then at least you're all going through it together.
Now, the city of Ottawa, obviously, they had the Fury for many years, and there's a good footballing base there. Have you been to the city much? I mean, how much do you know about the city?
I was lucky enough to play here a couple times with FC Edmonton, so I'm not going to say I'm well versed in the city and its neighborhoods and stuff, but I obviously took those games as opportunities to walk around and get to know the nation's capital a bit. So I definitely had an idea in my mind before I came that it was it's a very beautiful city and lots to do, lots of beautiful things outdoors, which coming from BC is important to me. So I had a bit of a picture in my mind, but obviously I'm really excited to get to know it a little bit better once I'm allowed outside the house.
Yeah, I've only ever been once, and I thought it was a lovely city. It was so picturesque, and walking beside the canal and everything. I mean, I hope to get out and take a game in at some point.
Yeah, that would be incredible. You should.
I want to go around and...
Welcome to Crash with me.
I'll take you up on that. I've been wanting to try and get to all the stadiums, and I was meant to go to Halifax in September, and then we cancelled the trip because my wife wasn't well. So hopefully we'll make it out there at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, again, I haven't been able to go check things out yet, but TD Place, when I played there in the past, was a great venue. They've announced they're putting in new turf, which I think is huge for the league, because some players have concerns over some of the older styles of turf, especially in the CFL stadiums. So that's going to be great for the football that's going to be played there, and obviously with the Fury having been here before, there's a beautiful infrastructure that's already kind of laid out for us. Existing fan base, existing stadium, and a city that's obviously shown that they appreciate having a football club there to come see.
And just the last couple of things, what actually touched on that is the fans, and it's like it is an existing fan base. And one thing which you've had wherever you've been, it's like is a good connection with the fans, and not all players have that. Not all players are comfortable interacting with the fans, but it just seems to come so naturally to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes from growing up, always dreaming of being a footballer. And I remember going to old Whitecaps games at Swangard, and after every match, they usually have a couple guys come out and sign autographs for the kids and stuff outside the stadium. And I just remember instances like that where I was a young kid, and that 2 minutes I got to spend with a player meant the world to me. So especially with the kids, that's I'll always have all the time in the world for them. And then as for the older population that comes to the games too, I think it just there's no reason why there should be barriers between athletes and fans. At the end of the day, we're all human, and without the people that come to the stadiums, we don't have jobs. So I've always just been very very appreciative of that, and traveling around the world as well. I think I've always been interested in meeting new people, and what better way to do that than people that already have common interests with me, and whether it's sitting down and talking about football or something else, it's always something I've really enjoyed. And
I saw on Twitter you were even calling some fans up this week. What was behind that?
That I can't totally take credit for it, because the club officers asked a few of us, just with all the downtime, to make some calls to season ticket deposit holders. Okay,
that's good though.
So I made a few of those, and the reactions were really nice, and I didn't really speak a word about tickets, so I might get a little slap on the wrist for that. But I just thought it was a really, really enjoyable way to connect with fans that, we obviously haven't even kicked a ball yet, but it's an opportunity to create a bit of a bond before things get going. And a couple of people reached out saying how much they appreciated the call on Twitter, and I just thought, I've got all the time in the world right now, so I might as well put out a little open invitation for anyone else that might like a personal call to personal message me their name and number, and I'd be happy to spend a few minutes talking to anyone who replied. So I definitely didn't expect as many to reply as they did, but it was a fun afternoon. And like I said, it's I think in a time like this where there's a lot of negative things going around, it was a nice way to spread a bit of positivity and hopefully spread a bit of joy around the Atletico Ottawa community.
Absolutely, and we certainly all need that just now. And I mean, you've only got one more week of this quarantining to go, and then hopefully you can get out and then enjoy some fresh air. Hopefully we'll see you back on the pitch soon. I don't know how long this is going to go on for. It feels like it could still be a while yet, but take care of yourself. Thank you so much for chatting us today, Ben, and I look forward to seeing you back out on the pitch soon.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me on, Michael. A pleasure as always, and that invitation stands if you ever make your way out to Ottawa, so we'll be in touch.
I will.
It started when an alien device did what it did and stuck itself up on his wrist with secrets that it hid. Now he's got superpowers, he's no ordinary kid, he's Ben 10.
Always a pleasure to chat with Fisky. So weird to think that I've been watching him play since he was here with the residency in probably 2011, I think would have been the first time that I saw him. Wish him all the very best in Ottawa. I'm sure he's going to do fantastic there whenever the CPL gets back into action. Now, we've had Bear on the show several times over the years, and of course he has in the past done our chocolate digestive segment. For anyone wondering, it was a coffee, unless he's with his mum, which he likes a tea. He prefers fruit, but at a push, he'd have a cinnamon bun. So hopefully he's stocked up on those for this little quarantine period that he's in. And I hope that himself and all the Ottawa players don't show any symptoms of anything and they're all super healthy by the end of all this. So if a cinnamon bun is Ben Fisk's choice for the chocolate digestive section, I wonder what the Whitecaps' recent French import, David Milinkovic, would want. Let's find out, shall we? If you're sitting at home and you decide to have a hot beverage, would you go for a tea, a coffee, or something else?
Oh, after training.
Anytime.
After training, I love to going at home for a little bit recovery, and after I take my wife and I'm going to take coffee in the Starbucks little bit, and after I coming at home and stay relaxed for the next training because training is very hard.
Yeah.
And we like to stay ready every day. For stay ready every day in the training, you have to be in one good life, and after training, good recovery, good heat is more important for stay be ready. But it's okay. Now I have the same ritual of the heart after training. I'm going at home, go to take coffee, and it's okay. It's a little bit the same.
So, when you're having a coffee, obviously in Scotland we're known for not having a very healthy diet. We eat a lot of chocolate and biscuits and things like that. Did you get a sweet tooth when you were there? Like, do you like to have biscuits or sweet stuff with your coffee? Are you a healthy guy?
I don't know. My girlfriend is steak. I take with her a little bit, but it's okay. No.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for your time and good luck.
Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive, even though it sounds suggestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive?
David Milinkovic there. Sadly, will not have his routine of going to Starbucks continuing for the foreseeable future, but hopefully everyone can get back to some kind of normality soon. At least they're still doing delivery and takeout through Uber Eats, so recommend that everyone tries to do as much of that as possible. If you can still support some small businesses during this time, try and do that as well, just as much as you can. I know they'll certainly appreciate it in the long run, as will you if they're still in business when we get back out in the streets again. Anyway, that is it for this part of the show. We'll be back with some more fun after this.
Hi, I'm Mark Dos Santos, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
I've seen The Walking Dead, so I know what to do on the survivalist episode of Rituro. I got an underground shelter just in case the world falls apart with the human race. Bought loads of toilet roll in a blind panic. I'm prepared for a bigger shit than the Titanic. I know martial arts, I've learned off TV. Got khaki combats and homemade weaponry.
I'm a survivor, I'm a stockpiler. Keep on surviving, some call it guiding. I'm a survivor, I'm a stockpiler. Keep on surviving, use hand sanitizer.
No need to stockpile toilet paper at an alarming rate, cause I've been doing that shit since 2008. In America, they got tons of guns. At least I'll be alright if I guess the run. We beat SARS and bird flu too. Wash your hands, sing happy birthday to you. Oh, the irony, is this how it all ends? At least I still got Netflix and I can still watch Friends.
People think I'm weird, but I know the truth. I've read the forums and I've got the proof. They don't lie or tell a tale. It must be true, it's in the Daily Mail. I'm ready for action like a cold spring for Judgment Day and the uprising. I move like a ninja without any fuss, and most of my clothes are army surplus.
I'm a survivor, I'm a stockpiler. Keep on surviving, some call it guiding. I'm a survivor, I'm a stockpiler. Keep on surviving, use hand sanitizer.
From one friend of the show to another. Goldie Luke and Chain there with their new song, The Self-Isolation Rap. Just released on Saturday, March 21st. Check out the YouTube video for the whole song. Excellent stuff from Newport's finest. Serial thrillers, one and all. And from one kind of serial to another now. which is a horrible segue, but it's the best I can come up with. Because it's now time for part 2 of our new weekly episodic football drama. Last week on It's Tough for the Son of a Soccer Star, Dick Denby, a promising young footballer, was hoping to make the grade with Bracktown United. He sent a letter to them asking for a trial, but hadn't heard back. Dick's dad used to play for Bracktown United, but doesn't talk about it and says that he had to give up playing because of an injury. But there does seem to be something mysterious about his unwillingness to talk about it. What could this mysterious secret be? Meanwhile, Dick has ended up at Bracktown United Stadium, finding a way inside to watch training, and somehow he has got himself involved in it. Could this be his big chance for a trial and to make the grade with Brackton? Find out in part 2 on It's Tough for the Son of a Soccer Star. The other players and the 2 trainers, glad of a breather, stood watching. Dick quickly bent down and tucked his trousers into his socks. Then he darted onto the field just as Andy Masters flung the ball across to him. The ball was waist high when it reached Dick, but he checked it neatly with his body and allowed it to drop down to his feet. Next moment, he was herring down the wing, the ball bobbing at his feet as if tied by string. 2 players moved in towards him. Dick slowed, feinted to pass to his right, and then darted between them. Before they could recover, Dick was racing on with the ball dancing at his toes. Now the great Andy Masters was in front of him, challenging to tackle. 3 yards away from the famous winger, without checking his speed, Dick raised his left foot. Andy Masters, fully expecting that a young novice would try to swerve and failed, moved that way. It was a mistake. Next moment, Dick changed feet, and with a perfect body swerve slid past his famous opponent, with the ball barely half an inch from the touchline. "Nice work!" grinned Andy Masters. Then he uttered an exclamation of admiration as he turned, just in time, to see Dick Denby hit the ball hard with his left foot. The ball sailed high into the centre, straight to the feet of the centre forward who had all the time in the world to crash it, first time, into the back of the net. That swift movement brought a cheer from the players as Andy Masters rushed up to Dick and patted his shoulder warmly. "That was terrific," he cried. "Do you think you could do it again?" "I'll have a good try," said Dick happily. The goalie fished the ball from out of the net, and at a signal from Andy, punted it back to Dick. The young footballer repeated his run along the wing, though this time he beat Andy Masters with a different trick. There was another cheer for Dick, but this was quickly interrupted by a booming voice from the grandstand. "Bob, grab that lad, and bring him to my office straight away. I want to have a talk with him." "That's manager Joe Danvers," grinned Andy Masters. "Boy, you're made. When he shouts for a player like that, it means he really wants him." Trainer Bob Warner, smiling warmly, approached Dick, and a minute later, feeling very excited, the young footballer was being escorted from the field and along to a corridor, then onto a door marked manager. In a matter of seconds, Dick was inside the office and gazing round at the trophies which adorned the shelves. In the place of honour over the fireplace was a large but fading photograph of the Bracktown United team, which had battled through to Wembley and won the FA Cup 20 years before. Joe Danvers, beaming, was sitting behind his large desk. He came straight to the point. "Well done, young fellow," he said. "I don't know how you came to be out on the ground just now, but that doesn't matter. How would you like to sign on as an amateur for the United? You'd have to start in the reserves, of course, but after what I've just seen of you, it wouldn't be very long before you were challenging for a place in the first team. What do you say? Will you sign?" Dick was so thrilled that he could hardly speak, but at last he found his voice. "You bet I will, sir," he cried. "There's nothing I want more." Then, just as Joe Danvers was pulling out a printed form from his desk, the door flew open and the assistant trainer Fred Bagley burst into the room. "Mr. Danvers," he cried, "if you're thinking of signing this lad, then don't!" What was behind Fred Bagley's outburst? Will Dick be able to sign this amateur form that he's dreamed of? And what will his dad say when he finds out that both father and son have been with United? Find out all this and more in part 3 of AFTN Soccer Serial, It's Tough for the Son of a Soccer Star by Edwin Dale. That was It's Tough for the Son of a Soccer Star by Edwin Dale, taken from the 1959 Roy of the Rovers annual. What's going to happen next? Well, you're going to have to tune in next week to find out. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I thought this was meant to be primarily a Vancouver Whitecaps podcast. There's not been much Vancouver Whitecaps stuff in this episode. Yeah, you're right. We had hoped to have a lot more. Some things didn't quite work out this week as we had hoped for. Fingers crossed though that we'll get some stuff sorted out in this coming week and we'll have some more Whitecaps content in next week's show. So what I thought I would do is dig a little bit into the archives, a pretty recent archive, and a chat that I had in the off-season with Whitecaps centre-back Jasser Khmiri. Now, Jasser's English, it's so-so for having a sort of small conversation with him, but for doing interviews he's not really able to do interviews in English. So normally on the show we don't really like to bring you too many of the kind of translated interviews because it doesn't make for good listening sometimes when you're asking a question, it's getting translated, it's in different languages, and then the translation always seems to lack something. You get an answer that lasts for possibly a minute, and then the English translation lasts for about 10 seconds. So it's not always the best, but we did get a chance to sit down with Jasser Khmiri after the end of the 2019 season and before the 2020 pre-season got into full flow. Now, we brought you that interview as a written piece on the website aftn.ca back on January 17th, but we've never actually played the audio on the show. As I sat down with Jasser just to talk to him about his move to MLS, the difficult year he had with all the injuries, and just him looking forward to the 2020 season, which of course has been curtailed at the moment. Some interesting stuff in that interview though, and I know a lot more folk listen to the podcast than read the written stuff on the site, so we thought we'd bring that to you in this episode. So what we've done for it is we've got me asking the questions to Jasser. The translation for this interview is done in Arabic by Whitecaps goalkeeping coach Youssef Daha. So I've cut out him asking Jasser the questions in Arabic, kept in Yasser's replies, and then the translation into English. Hopefully you don't find it too off-putting and you find it an enjoyable listen. So let's hear now from Whitecaps centre-back Jasser Khmiri. It's been a tough first year in Vancouver recovering from the injury. How are you feeling now?
He's in the beginning when he came here and he stayed outside the field. He's feel very tough. It's tough for him because he's not in the part in the team because he's injured. And
حبيت معناتها نكون معاهم معناتها من أول سيزون وكل شيء نعاونهم باللي عندي.
He likes to stay with the team in the beginning, but he's injured. But now he's good for to back and he feel much better.
Is it disappointing that now that you are healthy, there's no games, then you have to now wait until March to play?
قول لي بالعربي قول لي انا غنقول يعني
كل مبسي نقول شي صعيب ومن بعد الولاد كل معناتها عاونوني معناتها وقفوا معايا باش انا ما نخممش لي انا نهار معناتها محسن لي كل وقت من اللي انا معاهم فهمني وتوا كله معناتها جاي بريسيزون ودي العام هذا نفسخوا بالنسبه لي انا الناس ما تعداش.
For this year is forget for this year, now we start focus for next year and now is a very focus for next season. And with this year is tough with the player, but outside the lot people help him mentally and physically with the physio and doctor and this. He feels very good with that. And he said he want to thank the medical staff to help him this year.
He made his debut in LA. That was going to always be an exciting time playing his first game, but to play in a game and to mark a player like Zlatan, did that make it extra special?
بالنسبه لي انا العقد نتاعي يعني ما على باليش بحتى اسم يعني عنده زوز ساقين ما انا عندي زوز ساقين نلعب فهمني بس انا خفت نشوف شكون يربح في الاخر.
He said for him it's not a matter with who he's playing. He's a professional player, and Zlatan is a professional player. He's another player. He's playing like the same way.
What made him decide to come over to MLS and to Vancouver? It's obviously a big decision to make a move from your home country. What made him decide that he wanted to come here?
لما حبيت نلعب نشوف معناتها برشا جوارات قاعدين يجيو معناتها وفي قاعده تتطور معناتها من احسن لاحسن معناتها اي واحد يلعب يحب يلعب في الامالات.
He said everyone like to come here to MLS to play in MLS because the money go ground here after years, and that he knows the league and he think to come one day in MLS, and this opportunity is coming for him, and he's here now.
He's had a year watching the league and the play. How has he found the quality here compared to what he was used to back in Tunisia?
الفرق في اللعب ولا شنو بين تونسيا وهنا؟ شنو هو الفرق؟
ما عندنا برشا انت تعرف عندنا برشا ملاعبيه في تونس بطولتنا زادة مش خايف.
Tunisia is a league, is old league, and they have more experience when they playing. And it's sure, he said, MLS is younger leagues, only 25. But in the Tunisia is 100 years, and the player and the play is fast. They have this culture football, and yeah.
Mark speaks very highly of him and what he is going to bring to the team next season. For people that haven't seen him play, what does he think he can add to this team to make them better next year?
كيما يجور متحب يعطي اللي عنده والثقة معناتها نحب الثقة اللي عطاوها لي نحب نفرضها هنا في التيران معناتها نرجع لهم الجميل في التيران.
For him, it's not what he give more, but he want to back what the coach give him and what the club give him, and he put 100% in the field every game.
That's great. Jasser Khmiri there. And I think one of the big disappointing things about the MLS season being curtailed right now, well, one of the many disappointing things about it being curtailed right now is Jasser had a pretty shaky pre-season. Still finding his feet, still trying to get some chemistry with Derek Cornelius. The first game against Sporting Kansas City wasn't fantastic either. But that second game of the season, the 1-0 win down in LA, Jasser Khmiri, Andy Rose, that was a really good partnership together. I liked what they did. Rose seemed to really calm down Jasser's play, and I thought Khmiri was excellent in that game. He was maybe just starting to find his feet, get some rhythm, which is what is important in any player, especially when they've been out with an injury. And then just as he's getting that, just as he's getting into his stride, now he's got another long break ahead of him. But as we've talked about in recent episodes of the show, it's definitely going to be a very interesting centre-back battle once we are fully back in and running, and it's really up for grabs just now as to who those two starting centre-backs are going to be. But Khmiri does definitely seem to be one for the future for the Whitecaps. Mark DeSantis very high on him when we've spoken to him in the past. But from one for the future to a nod to the past now. Yes, it's wavelength time, everybody. And Football Violence Awareness Month continues here on AFTN. And for this week's song, we're going back to the 90s. Well, we're also going back to the 80s. It's a song by English punk band Cock Sparrer. You can find it on their 1992 Rarities album. You can also find it on the 1998 album, which is where I've got this one from, Trouble on the Terraces, 16 Classic Football Anthems, or 18 if you get it on the CD version that was released later on. A lot of top tunes on that album. A lot of them have played in Wavelength and during Football Violence Awareness Month, past and present. And this week is the title track. From Cocksparrow, this is Trouble on the Terraces.
You say you want the authorities to take action, but I don't believe you're genuinely concerned. You say you think the terraces should be closed down, but your son is one of us, so when will you learn? Adrenaline's running high, and I've got nothing to fear.
Cocksparrow there with Trouble on the Terraces. Punk band from the East End of London, formed in 1972 before punk was even a thing, and still going strong to this present day. If you wonder where the name comes from, it's kind of like from the Cockney phrase, "All right, me old cocksparrow," kind of like a cheeky little chappy. And fun fact, well, fun to me, the band Cocksparrow, one of their more famous songs was Take 'Em All, which is a song sang by the Timbers Army, and you'll be very familiar with it if you've listened to Timbers games, been down at Piggy Park. It's the one that goes, take 'em all, put 'em up against the wall and shoot 'em. So you decide, what's got the nicest lyrics, that or Trouble in the Terraces? We've got one more song in Football Violence Awareness Month to come next week, but we'll be back talking Football Manager, the game, after this.
Hi, I'm Cal Valentine. You're listening to the AFTN podcast.
It's time to play the game. Time to play the game. It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control. And if you can take it, it's all about your debt. And if you can pay it, it's all about pain. And who's gonna make it? I am the game. You don't wanna play me. I am control. No way you can shake me. I am heavy debt. No way you can pay me. I am the pain, and I know you can't take me.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show. That was Motorhead and The Game, which you can find on some versions of their 2002 album Hammered. But if you're a wrestling fan, you'll be more familiar with it as the entrance music for Triple H in WWE. And you can find it on a few of the WWE wrestling music compilation CDs. Still a fantastic song. And it is all about the game and how you play it. And with so many of us now having a lot of free time on our hand, a lot of attention is turning to playing games, football games, board games, computer games. On last week's show, we asked listeners what they were doing to kind of fill their footballless void that they've got for the coming weeks and months now. One of the top answers in that was playing Football Manager. I know that I myself downloaded the game. Haven't really had time to start properly playing it yet. Have had a little bit of a dabble with it. Good results so far with me taking over as the manager of East Fife. And I'm sure a lot of people bought and downloaded the game once all the news broke that there wasn't going to be any football for them to watch. Adding to those numbers as well, it was revealed this week that you could download the game and play for free for 1 week on Steam from the 18th of March to the 25th of March. And I know from my Twitter timeline and Facebook timeline, so many people have been doing that. So with that in mind, knowing there's a lot of newbies like myself playing the game, we thought we'd get a Football Manager aficionado on the phone. And what better guy to do it than the voice of the Victoria Highlanders, Rituro. Pleasure to talk to you again, Rituro.
You as well, Michael. I mean, good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's definitely been a while. And I've billed you there as being a Football Manager aficionado, because from all the guys I know that play the game, you definitely have so much knowledge from just seeing you tweet about it and some chats we've had before. How long have you been actually playing the game for?
I've been playing it since it was still called Worldwide Soccer Manager in North America. So for whatever reason, in their infinite wisdom, Sports Interactive decided that the only way to get the game to sell in North America was to call it Worldwide Soccer Manager.
Ah.
So my first experience with Football Manager was Worldwide Soccer Manager 2009. That was the year when I first, because I've been casually following the Whitecaps down in their USL days. They used to show up every so often on like TV or whatever. I'd always been like, soccer, you say? It just so happened that this popped up in my recommended games list, and I saw a demo of it, and the demo led to the full game, and that led to where we are 11 years later, 11, 12 games later.
And what is it about the game that makes you kind of love it so much? What is it that kind of hooked you on it?
What hooked me immediately was the amount of depth in such a very, for me anyway, accessible presentation. I mean, you're given the ability to do practically what you want wherever you want to do it. And with the ability of having now in the modern versions of the game, workshop supports, you can have fan leagues put in. Before the Canadian Premier League was officially added, there was a very well done fan version. People would just drop in and do a theoretical Premier League, which is really fun. And the ability to have that kind of detail and to really make you the center of attention as you're building the squad of your dreams. I love that organic storytelling nature of it. I mean, I'm a commentator for soccer, like you said. I love storytelling. I love building something from nothing. My favorite genre of game is City Builder. The number of variations of SimCity that I have on my computer is somewhat embarrassing. But the ability to build something and tell that same story is just so appealing to me. So to get that in soccer form and to take, what was my first club? Exeter. Exeter had just gotten promoted to League 2. And yeah, sure, that looks like fun. And my first preseason game, we let in 2 own goals. I immediately cut the defender who let them in, and the press savaged me for days for it. And I was like, all right, I need to learn how to play this game because that was horrible, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I've just started playing it again. I hadn't played it for many, many years, and like a lot of people, I've downloaded it just now. I'm deciding to get into it to kind of fill this time. I mean, you've played a lot over the years. Do you think you're going to find yourself playing even more now, or do you think you'll just kind of keep it at the same levels?
I imagine I'd be playing everything a bit more now with a little bit more time at home to have. What really got me playing this year's edition, Football Manager 2020, what got me playing this M20 more is that they took what they added in 2019 and made it more responsive. So the combination of making everything in FM20 play a little better, plus having more time to actually play it, I think there's definitely going to be a little more time spent with my back-to-back spring season winning Pacific FC.
Oh, excellent! So you did better than the proper team then with Pacific. Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do when you can get Mary Tungia to stand tall at the back line for an entire season. Plus, Caden Chung and Alexander Javapur are just key in Football Manager. The game loves their potential and upside, and when it rolled the dice to determine how high they could grow, that number was high. So we are running rampant with this squad. I love it.
Now, I'd wanted to get it for a couple of years, and everyone was like, oh no, you're just going to lose time to it, and I'd been so busy with other stuff that I decided not to in the end. But I've got it now. A lot of other people as well are thinking about it. I know a lot of folk already have it. Folk are thinking about it. There's the great chance that you can try it at least for a week free right now as well. So if anyone was on the fence and thinking, should I go for this? How would you sell it to them? What is it that you would say to them, yeah, you really want to go and download this?
Yeah, the first thing I would say to somebody is, well, do you watch matches? I do, okay. Have you ever sat there and gone, what is the manager thinking? Why? Why wouldn't you make that sub now? Why are you always bringing up a 4-2-3-1 and bringing people off at the 60th minute every game, not the main game? if that's the kind of attitude you have towards a live game, what if I could give you a game where you make those decisions? You want to play the formation? Fine. Go nuts. You think you could get, you think you could get Porto to win Champions League over Bayern? Fine. Prove it. Go. You think you could win the treble with Vancouver? Fine. Try it. It's the ability to actually, it doesn't matter if you can put your money where your mouth is. That's really attractive. And I'm even seeing people on Twitter taking up this free trial and coming to that conclusion. I think it was Russell Beresford who took over Spurs, was it? And that was my first thought. Okay, Mr. Beresford, you think you can do better? I'd like to see this. And that is such a great hook to be able to say, hey, I know it all looks great on TV, and it feels good to shout and get back a thousand out, but to actually know that, okay, now you've got to train all these people and manage their egos and hire a new staff because your lead scout just quit. And oh, by the way, the supporters don't like the style of football you're playing. And oh, by the way, you're over budget. Now you get a broader appreciation for the game as well. It's just so enticing that way. That is how I would tell somebody right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, from my early playing about with it, I can't believe just sort of how complex it is, and it goes into everything. But like, before we get into that, I mean, you've been playing it for a while. What would you say has been your own personal biggest career highlights from playing it?
Oh boy, the earliest big triumph I think I can remember was playing as Vauxhall Motors FC. This was before they folded. We're talking like depths of non-league football. A good friend of mine had just taken Tamworth from the football conference all the way to the Premiership. He lugged it out and went from the fifth year of English football to the Premiership. It was fantastic. I went, okay, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to go from the sixth tier to the Premiership. I did not do it, but I did get them promoted, and I got Vauxhall into this absolutely amazing battle to try and get it to League 2. That was my first real moment where I went, okay, it is possible to get glory in this game. And that's, years later, I would start streaming. I would go on Twitch, and I'd be having all these Monday morning manager sessions, which is fantastic. And it's a complete coincidence. Remember when GTFC became a hashtag for Whitecaps land?
Yeah, if I remember right, the GTFC thing came in, I think it was for the 2015 Voyagers Cup.
That's right.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, it's been crazy, like, how that's kind of caught on and united things as well, and...
By pure coincidence, I was playing Grimsby Town while GTFC was becoming a thing, and I remember I picked up this Turkish kid, pulled a skater on, I plugged him in as my number 10 at Grimsby, and he took us to promotion to League One. I don't think I've ever cheered so hard for something that is not real. It was just this rush of, oh my goodness, Grimsby is going up the Mariners, come on lads, and this Turkish kid is leading us to victory. It was unreal. I think the best part of that too was there is a mode in Football Manager called unemployed mode, where you start with nothing. You are a nobody in football. Well, maybe you are. You can tweak it a little, but generally speaking, you're a nobody. You need to find a club that's willing to hire you. You can take a total flyer on, in my case, some unknown 30-something Canadian, and try and take them somewhere. Grimsby was one stop on my unemployed tour, so I'd worked my way up slowly to get to Grimsby and repaid the board safely by getting them promoted. That still stands out to me to this day as being one of my real FM career highlights.
For newbies, like I downloaded it about a week or so ago because we've been having chats. A couple of us, yourself included, are going to be having a kind of mini competition. So I've downloaded it. So when I downloaded it, it came with the two versions of it. It came with the full version, and it came with Football Manager Touch, which seems to be a bit of a reduced version. What's the main differences with that, and what would you recommend for a newbie to start off with?
You hit it right there, my boy. The Touch version of FM is stripped down. It's meant to be taken on the go. It's got a lot of the higher end, sort of nitty-gritty of managing a football club, and it lets you be the manager still, just picking the lineups and players and doing your scouting and all that. But it's much more meant for either a tablet or a phone.
Right.
So that to the full version where you are doing everything. It is tempting to say play the stripped down version and if you like it. I would argue go for the full version first, but play in a league that you don't know. The reason is you're not going to be blinded by any biases that you might have over different players. So for example, before I started playing Exeter back in WSM 09, I tried to play with Sheffield United. At that point in my life, that was my English club. Everyone has an English club, right?
Yeah.
United were mine. And I played with them, and I thought, okay, well, I know most of these players, and pretty sure it's fine. Disaster. I could not for the life of me get it. So I thought, okay, let's do this again. I went to Sweden. Much better. Not blinded by any biases you don't have, or I don't know left from right in Swedish football. Focus on learning the fundamentals. You can focus on learning how A connects to B. If I tell this person to do that, will they actually do it? And you can do it in a very consequence-free environment, especially if you're playing at a lower league. There's a name for people who manage at lower leagues called LAMAs, lower league managers, LAMAs. And LAMAs are difficult if you're trying to do it for real, but if it's just to get your feet wet, just to practice, just to see how everything sort of connects, it is a great way to learn the full game. So a
League One, third tier.
Oh, very good. So, fantastic. Still a lower league, not in the top two divisions of the country. Excellent place to learn. Now, for you specifically, there may be a worry about the biases that you might have for the existing players in the league.
Yeah.
That might be a problem. But for anybody else who's trying to find their footing in the game, going into Scotland, going into League One or League Two, picking a club and getting a handle on the fundamentals is a fantastic way to get into it. The tutorials in the game have improved every year, and running through the basic tutorials on a club you don't know really sets you up for success when you really want to make that next step to a bigger club.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about tutorials and stuff because I've come into it, I started playing it, and like I do with most games that I buy, I've not read any manuals about it. I'm just really bad. Whenever I buy any game, I just put it in and then try and figure it out. Now, would you recommend that a newcomer does either read the manual, the tutorials, or maybe even watches an online video or two just to get the swing of things?
There are fantastic FM, YouTube, and Twitch streamers out there who have put together some very good guides for newbies, and certainly people like Statistical Approach, StatApp, Dr. Benji. There are people out there who it's their living, and you cannot go wrong by getting some of their advice. However, if you just want to dive in and start playing, the game will pop up with little contextual hints or advice.
Yeah.
Doing something new. So, for example, say you've never used a medical center, which is something they added only in the last few years. But, you can now prevent injury, sort of, by managing players' fitness. There'll be a little pop saying, hey, you've never used this before. Would you like to explain it to you? And then you can click along, and it'll highlight the little things. And even if you haven't been directly prompted for it, every page of Football Manager has a question mark on it. You put the question mark, up pops the guide, say, hey, tell me how to do this, and it will step you through it one click at a time. So it is way more accessible than it has been in years. I cannot say enough good things about the community online. The streamers on YouTube and Twitch are great. Check them out, and if you do want to dive in, you will still be fine.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously it's a very complex game, and we could be on for hours talking about tips and things, but some things I just kind of wanted to pick your brain was like any tips you've got for like sort of building a team, like tactics to play, and just really just general gameplay.
Yeah, so depending on what level you are, this is where the transfer budget would make a big difference. I'm a big fan of making a team as efficient as possible, which is absolutely true in lower leagues where you do not have the budget to do much of anything. So playing a formation that allows you to have players that can be plug and play fairly easily is great. It saves you budget. It gets you usually players who are a little more flexible and won't be too put out of sorts by being put out of position. So my personal favorite example is a 4-4-2 narrow diamond. So you've got a back four, a defensive mid, two central midfielders, an attacking mid, whether that's a 10 or a false 9, your pick, or a shadow striker, and then two strikers up front. So ideally, you'll have strikers that can swap positions or roles, and maybe even move down to that number 10 role. You can have midfielders that could go between all three of those midfield roles, attacking, mid, or defensive. And if you're very lucky, you might even get a defensive and center back combo, maybe. And then it's just a matter of finding center backs and fullbacks to put in front of your goalkeeper. And now you've got a squad you can manage on a budget. If you're playing with you're doing a trust the kids movement, you can then train them up on multiple positions. And the nice thing about playing a 4-4-2 narrow diamond is you effectively scare the opposition to take the flank. So it's very much a min-max strategy. I'm going to say, you know what? I don't need the flanks. We're going to play right up the middle. You want to cross it to me? Please look at the two giants that I plugged into my center backs. I dare you to cross to them. It's a good way to build a squad on a budget and know that you sort of know what your strategy is, and you can anticipate what the other team will try. But like I said, you're giving up the flank, so the AI will naturally charge out wide. And you basically, okay, well, as long as my center holds, we're fine. Back up the middle we go, hit him on the counter, maybe play some possession. At that point now, you can really decide how this team plays out. So the short version of what that long ramble was, 4-4-2, narrow diamond, rely on your midfield to be flexible, and you'll be fine.
Interesting, because when I first picked my team in the first half, I went with a different formation and it wasn't really working because I was trying to go for wing play and I didn't really have wingers in the squad. Then I did switch to a 4-4-2 diamond and it was a way, way better second half in my first couple of games. And yeah, interesting.
The more that Football Manager has evolved as a series and a game, the more it's been a little more intelligent about how it handles positions. So now if you have a team that is not built for wing play, like you said, the game will recognize that, and the players will really struggle if you try and hammer that square peg into a round hole. So learning to read your team is a big part of learning to play the game, and you can click for advice from the coaches and from the games or the scouts at home. There are ways to learn that now. But the core thing to remember is you need to either build the team with strategy or build the strategy as a team and not just hit it with a hammer until you think it's going to go together. It has to be built deliberately. So starting with something simple and working your way up is great. Also, I will throw this out there for someone who's just starting the game. Don't break the bank. Don't throw hundreds of thousands of pounds or millions even on like snagging some big player from another team. In the early days, it will backfire so badly. Oh, I remember my first big signing for Exeter. He was a Welsh player playing in the championship. Liam Walsh, he comes in, he brags to the press the team is going to be built around him. He's on a huge wage. I've blown my transfer budget on him. He couldn't make it off the bench at the halfway point through the season. So I'm out of money, I'm out of salary cap or wage budget, and I've got this superstar who thinks he is, he's on mine anyway, just doing nothing. So save your money, pay low, take your time to splash the cash into a formation that works, and you can avoid a lot of those embarrassing missteps.
That's very good tips there. And I mean, obviously new players, they're going to make some big mistakes. But what would you say is, like, apart from maybe overspending, like you've just said, what is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make?
Oh, so many.
Oh.
The one that I found I was making a lot in the newer versions of FM. You have the ability now as the manager. This is an actual little you on the touchline now, which I find is a neat little thing. You can shout at the players to provide some advice or encouragement or whatnot. And the biggest mistake that I was making in the early design of this was trying to use it constantly, barking at players. Like you see some managers do, they don't shut up, right?
Yeah. Mark DeSantis is a good example.
Fantastic example, absolutely. The game doesn't quite like that. It depends a lot on your manager's stats. So there are dice being rolled behind the scenes for motivation and all this. And the net result is do not spam the shout button. It will anger, upset, and confuse and demotivate your players more often than it will inspire or motivate or focus them. There's a time and a place to shout at your defense to, get their heads back in the game, but it's not every 30 seconds. So knowing when to hit the shout button and when to leave it alone is a big mistake I made, and one that I would definitely caution all new players to avoid the temptation to be Mr. Shouty Pants.
Very good advice there. I think this has really probably helped a lot of folk that are listening to it. And if anyone hasn't downloaded it yet, you've still got a couple of days to download it, try it out, see if it is for you. One thing that I have found, though, just from my initial playing, that, I mean, despite not having football and stuff to watch, I've been working on other projects at the moment, so I haven't had tons of free time to really delve into it yet. But it does definitely seem quite a time-consuming game. If someone was wanting to sit down in the full mode and play, I don't know, a full season, how long would that take? Are they better doing it over a few days, or should they just allocate a few hours? Because it does seem very time-consuming when you're first starting off.
It does, and especially right off the bat, the first few days of any brand new save file are going to be the longest few days you've ever played. So you will be assessing all your staff and your players and your tactics, and now in this version of the game, the club culture and the vision that you have with the board, there's going to be so much foundation building to happen that your first session, you might not even see the pitch for a friendly let alone start the season. So, depending on what league you're in, and depending on how many teams are in that league, you could get through a season at like breakneck speed. You could maybe get through a season in, I would say, a week.
Okay.
Now, that's assuming you play an average-size league. You're allowing your assistants to do the majority of the lifting for the club, and you are just fast-forwarding to each match and playing it through. If you wanted to take your time and like really, like I do, and sort of obsess over the details and decide, okay, do I want Alexandre Jabapour here, or should I make a swap with Alexander Gonzalez, or no, Terran Campbell, should I switch his wing or put him back up top? Oh, by the way, side note, on my Pacific file, Theo Bear was cut by the Whitecaps, so he and Campbell are now my strike partners up front. It's amazing.
Oh, wonderful.
It's oh my God, best pickup I ever made. Yes, Bear went cold for 16 matches, but he was helping. That was the important part. The point is, do not expect that you can power through a season in a weekend. Would be my expectation. There's a lot of stuff to look at in this game, and certainly a lot of stuff that it will behoove you to become familiar with so that you can play the game that much easier.
Yeah.
So I would say that you have a free week, which is fantastic. That's enough time to get 3/4 of the way through, let's say, an English season, which is great. That's enough time for you to figure out if you like what you're playing, you have learned something along the way, great. If you wanted to like power through the Apertura or Clausura in maybe South America or a Central American league, yeah, sure, why not? If you wanted to do like a full European campaign with Bayern from start to finish, including their season and all their cups, you might want to carve out a couple weeks for that one.
Good to know. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us all these tips, Rituro. Now, apart from obviously playing Football Manager, where can people find you online?
They can find me online on Twitter at @ThatRituroGuy, and hopefully in the very near future, my greater Esquimalt shoulder will be playing against you in Football Manager, Michael.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be also hearing you at some point doing Victoria Highlanders games again. Are they planning on streaming their PCSL games this year? Because if anyone doesn't know, the Highlanders have dropped out of USL for this season. But if the PCSL season goes ahead, is the plan, do you know, to stream these games?
I haven't been told no, so I'm crossing my fingers and hoping yes. But obviously it's going to depend entirely on, the world right now. I think there's a much larger presence than soccer kind of looming over all of us right now. So once that is, once our lives start getting back to normal, we'll probably get a clearer answer on that.
That's great. Look forward to hearing you. Look forward to talking to you soon. Look forward to playing against you at Football Manager. Thanks so much for your time tonight, Rituro.
Have a good evening.
Thanks so much to Rituro there. Always a pleasure catching up with him. And apologies for the sort of poor sound quality in the middle of that. Not really sure what happened with our phone call, but started off good, finished good, but there was a little bit of a dip in the quality in the middle. Hopefully you could make out everything that Rituro said there, so as there was a lot of good advice, especially for newbies that are just playing Football Manager for the first time, or, like myself, the first time in a number of years. But that is it for tonight's episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada, on YouTube at AFTN Canada. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also find us on Instagram at AFTN Soccer. Don't forget as well, you can also subscribe to our extra podcasts. There's still extra time. And at this tough time for journalism and just in general, where there's a lack of work all round for myself, any donations or subscriptions to the podcast or whatever would be very greatly appreciated. We've also added a new feature onto aftn.ca. We can just click a button. It says buy me a coffee and donate some coffee money. All donations, no matter how big or small, greatly received at this time. But we will be back next week with another AFTN Soccer Show. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. Look after each other. Stay indoors. And wash your hands. Bye, everybody.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. if you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
AFTN